Hello and welcome back. This is another episode of Fireside with Florence, the show where we peel back the public persona and explore the life journey of people of African heritage. Join me today as we welcome our guest, Tafy Seade. Tafy Seade is a rehab specialist who works with women to help restore confidence and strength both inside and out after pregnancy and childbirth. She's the founder and CEO of Active Pelvic Health and Physiotherapy, a private practice located in the northern suburbs of Melbourne that solely focuses on pelvic health rehabilitation. Launched in 2018, this practice has grown both in location and in its impact in the community through outreach programs. Her team, which now comprises 3 clinicians, has extended services to men and children. The practice understands the challenges faced with pelvic health, which negatively impact quality of life. They're passionate about helping people return to doing the things they love through open and honest conversations, providing evidence-based quality care, and seeing the transformations inform and empower patients. In 2019, Tafy was the recipient of the Northern Multicultural Small Business Award and has featured on SBS News and radio. Tafy holds a Bachelor of Science Honours in Physiotherapy from University of Zimbabwe and postgraduate training from the University of Melbourne, where she's a sessional tutor and enjoys combining education, research and practice in advancing the field of pelvic health. Away from work, Tafy enjoys travelling, running and spending time with her family and keeping up with her 3 very active young boys. Join me as Tafy talks through her journey from relocating from Zimbabwe to becoming an award-winning business owner and her lessons in running a successful business. Welcome back, everyone. Really excited to have you on with us. And today I have with me my good friend, Tafy. Tafy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Florence.
Okay, Tafy. Now, would you like to start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a physiotherapist that is based out here in Melbourne, Australia, and currently the owner of Active Pelvic Health and Physiotherapy. So this is a private practice that is dedicated to helping women restore both confidence and strength in their bodies after the effects of pregnancy and childbirth.
Wow. And we're really going to unpack that because I'm very passionate about the journey that you've taken to setting up your own business. But take us back to the beginning. You're originally from Zimbabwe. How did you transition from coming from Zimbabwe through to Melbourne?
So I actually did my undergraduate at the University of Zimbabwe, and I did my post-life honors degree in physiotherapy. And from that point, I actually started working in Zimbabwe in a public hospital, and then started doing a bit of private work. And then I guess with the economy, so I had siblings who were already overseas, and it was one of those pressure was on to say, what's next? What's the plan? What are you trying to do next? So a few job applications later, I managed to secure a job in Wollongong, out in New South Wales, and that was a sponsored job that allowed me to work at the same time while I tried to get my certification or qualifications recognized here in Australia. So that's kind of where my journey started, which would be now just over 11 years ago that I made that move. And then from there, it's just been working in different settings and just getting a bit more curious about this profession. And then, and I guess now with the business, it's coming to, we're just turned 2. Just really enjoying a local, kind of honing in one particular area in an area that can be quite varied, but offers a very rewarding career.
So tell me about how you ended up in healthcare. That journey from finishing school to actually going into healthcare. What did that look like for you?
It wasn't as straightforward. I think like a lot of people, when you're about 18, you just finished your A-levels and you're just trying to figure out, okay, what next? And I think for me, it was more presenting those options to my parents and saying, I think I'm interested in this. You're interested in this, but what can you actually, qualifications, what are you going to be able to be able to be accepted when you're looking at university, and what is that going to look like after you're done with university? So it's a bit of brainstorming regarding the options that I had. But it was always kind of health was my thing. I think I really enjoyed working with people. When you had family members in the family that were unwell and you're exposed to, that healthcare profession. So it kind of got my curiosity from there. So it was tossing between pharmacy, I think at the time, and physio. And at that point, it was just more down to the points, when you're looking at university, okay, what can you actually get into? So that's kind of where I would say at that point, it chose me versus the other way. Yeah, so I think that's kind of where I would say it all started for me, making that decision.
Wow. And so you then transitioned from Wollongong to calling Melbourne home,
Mm-hmm.
and have obviously now had quite an extensive career in Melbourne. Just talk us through what drove you to starting your own business.
Yeah, so at that point, when I first started, I actually was still on my maternity leave with my third child, and I just wanted convenience. I think that was the main thing with work and looking for something that can actually just suit my needs. So yeah, I really didn't set out to start something. It was more just what can actually fit my time, be flexible enough so I can work around the kids' schedules and also give me kind of the income that I needed for the season. The conversation started with my maternal health and child nurse, where she's like, oh, we were talking about what I do. And she's like, oh, we don't have anyone who does that in your realm around this area. And that led me just to ask a few. I think it was just from having that conversation with her, speaking to a local doctor who said, well, we need somebody like you. And that's kind of pretty much how it all started, having those doors open. And yeah, it's been incredible ever since that, just from one conversation to another, really meeting that demand. So noticing that, hang on, there is actually a real need and a real gap, and then meeting that demand as time went on.
And just in terms of the thoughts that you were going through as you were thinking about setting up, talk us through that. Was it a yes, this makes absolute sense? Was it, how long did you get to that point where you actually decided, I now want to do this, this is something I'm going to do?
Right. Yeah. So I remember my husband and we actually sat down and said, okay, we're going to give this a preliminary phase of 6 months. And if things don't work out, we still got the backup job. You can stretch your maternity leave up to a certain point, and we've still got that as a backup. So I think that really didn't make it that hard to make that choice to say, okay, you know what, this is just a trial run, and if things don't work out, I can always go back to what I was doing before. So I think that kind of helped make that decision. And what worked quite well is I lined up at the same time with a business program that was being offered for migrants and women, yeah, particularly for women, and which I just stumbled upon when I was just, when you're starting to do a bit of research online, and then, saying, okay, the workshops are available in the community. So that's kind of where I came across this program, and it was literally, like packed in a bow tie and a present and say, here you go. This is how you start a business from A to B to C to D. So, and I think that really just made that whole process very easy to transition. I think having said it easy, but at the same time, there are times where you just be like, what am I doing?
Okay, so you went through the course, you felt
Yeah.
you were equipped, but were there ever any moments where you sat there and thought to yourself, oh my gosh, this is a big leap?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think just, putting yourself out there, I think that's kind of where I was really um, being hesitant about, like you're really, with other jobs, you're always kind of behind, the organization you're working for or the practice, that you're working for, and not so much, putting yourself out there. So I think that's kind of where it really was, where I had my concerns, or, where I fear what's coming from, like, can I really do this? Can I really put myself out there and just do what I need to do? So I think that's probably where I was finding it was holding me back a little bit, just not knowing, okay, how do I sell myself? I know the physio side of things. I know what to do with my hands and, the treatments and all of that. But then how do I now hustle for a better word, or try to get the clients in the door and making sure this is done and this is done. So I think that's kind of where it was a lot of like, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing?
And so talk me through, how did you work through that? Like what resources did you use? Where did you go for help? How did you work through all of those challenges?
Yeah, so it came definitely from the program itself, because I was fortunate enough that I was tied with a mentor soon after finishing that program. And it was one of those like, okay, this is where you're at and this is where you want to go. Let's kind of walk you through those steps, and making sure that you're hitting goals each week or each month or whenever you are catching up. So that really helped having that accountability in place. And also the setup that was there, that it was pretty good that I could arrange having things already automated or delegated already. So I didn't have to worry about taking phone calls. I didn't have to worry about taking payments. All of that was already put into place with the administration team that was there. So that really helped just to kind of focus on, okay, this is what I need to work on and this is what I need to do. Everything else is really not going to be a focus point to kind of start moving forward.
Yeah. And then to the point where you then set it up, at what point did you then realize this is actually now this is no longer the side hustle, this is now the main gig?
Yeah. I think when you realize, you're overbooked and people can't get in to see you, and you're just finding, that demand is there. And I think the other thing is also the clients that were coming through and having them share their success from what we've been doing, like, okay, this is where I was before I came in, and this is where I am after, your services. So I think that's when you realize, oh, hang on, we actually are making an impact. We actually are offering something of value here, the best foot forward and keep going. Yeah.
And have you, now that you're in the space, looking back, hindsight, any thoughts about having done it earlier, having, moved into the entrepreneurial space? Like what do you think about now, in terms of now that you're in it and it's actually working?
I don't think I would have done it any earlier. I did, it's something I've always talked about before, but funny enough, you're busy, and for some reason I guess for me, I'm driven by being more busier. I mean, not to say that's a badge of honor, but I was able to line up things a lot better now, even after, with 3 kids, and say, okay, you know what, this is what I need to do in the home front, this is what I need to do in the business front. I think before, that mindset wasn't really there. It was more just, okay, lack of sleep, or just, I don't think it was there, as opposed to now just being a little bit more, okay, intentional about how I'm doing things and how I go about it. That's been the biggest.
And talk to me about the dichotomy, because you've got 3 boys. They're Rakshas boys. Fantastic. But they're obviously, like, having 3 boys in itself says it all, right? And running a business is it's not easy. It's not easy. And that takes up, like, that's a baby on its own. Juggling all of that, managing all of that, as you said, you started a business on mat leave. Like, it's a big step. How do you pull it all together?
I don't know. You kind of just go, not autopilot. No, I don't want to say autopilot. But I think one of the things that we did intentionally was to make sure that I only worked a certain amount of hours per week. So having that protected time and knowing that we're not going to go more than that, no matter how things busy got. That was always the hallmark, to say, okay, you're only committing this amount of hours to the business. And if the numbers are adding up, if things are falling into place, then that's when you need to either get another team member or something needs to change, but not so much start having, working in the business. That was kind of where we were really quite about capping it. So I'm not spreading myself too thin in that arena. And I think I've been fortunate to have a really good tribe around me. Hubby's been so supportive. I think he's my number one support. That without him, I don't think I would have gotten to where I am now, because it did involve a lot of sacrifices on his part and sacrifice on our part, and even as a family. There were just some things that we would just, say, okay, this is for the season. This is what we want to work on. Let's start putting those steps forward. And yeah, it was, literally just planning way in advance with how the school holidays would look like, how, the school term would look like. So that plan, if things were to change or shift, it wasn't going to take from that protected time, but it was going to need to come from other resources. And that's kind of where, if everything added up, that's where it would incorporate having another team member into the business.
Yeah. And so you did end up getting your first, how many months in did you end up getting the first team member into the business?
How many months would it be? I'd probably say after the first 9 months.
Yeah. So things were booming. 9 months in, things are booming. You have to now make that call and say, okay, fine, I think I named another person. Was that as scary in terms of now being responsible for someone else as it was actually setting up the business? Was it different? How did that decision play out for you?
Yeah, it was. I would admit, it was quite daunting that you kind of now are responsible for somebody else, and you kind of want to make sure you're coming into a business has got systems in place. No one's calling you to say, okay, how is this done, or where's this, or where's that. So really, kind of now putting yourself out there, not amongst clients, but also colleagues. So where you're making sure whatever it is that you're doing, it lines up with everything that we are taught as a profession. So I think that was probably quite daunting at the start, where you had a lot more boxes to tick, and maintaining that relationship as with other team members and how that would look like. I'll definitely say that was a lot more daunting.
And now you've expanded even more. Where do you see this? What does the vision look like for Tafy?
Oh, wow. Still defining that, but we are finding that there is a need. There are people out there who are suffering in silence, and creating that space and that environment that is helping people to meet that need is finding, there's definitely a room for that. How it all looks like in the future, that is still being panned out, but honestly, understanding that there's a need out there, and we're just happy to be able to offer these services.
Yeah. And then, as part of this journey, you then got nominated for an award, which you won. So talk us through that. How did that happen? And were you surprised being so early on in your journey? What did that look like?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so this award was part of the business program I did earlier. So from that, it kind of opened the doors to be able to have those networkings in place, starting to connect with other people, but also provide opportunities for businesses that are entering in different stages. And if you qualify, if you're eligible, you're able to kind of put yourself forward and see where that takes you. So definitely give props to my mentor, because she was like, go for it. I was like, oh, I'm not sure, I'm not quite, the seasoned business owner as others who would be applying, because, you'd had to kind of submit an extensive business plan and almost really plead your case in terms of what you're doing. So she really kind of said, look, go for it. This really will help you to reflect on what you're doing and where you want to go. And if you are still trying to figure that out, how else is anyone else going to be able to see that and support? So that was honestly that really took me by surprise when it got announced, and just having that exposure and saying, okay, you know what, I can able to take it to that caliber, and that almost like puts fuel under myself and the business, and saying, okay, you know what, let's keep going. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so that's definitely some of the highlights. Challenges. Talk us through some of the challenges that you faced on this journey.
Yeah. It's certainly, I say it's bittersweet challenges that you come across, in the sense that you are growing in not only just sticking to hands-on tools, being a technician, understanding how things operate outside of face-to-face consults or treatment. So, you're looking at finances, you're looking at admin, you're looking at human resources, you're looking at all of that. And, wearing those different hats has certainly been the biggest challenge. So I would admit, early on, there was those times when you're burning the midnight oil and, the loss to wake up, and all of that had to almost be done just to be able to kind of know, okay, what do I need to do next? What needs to be done? So you're not getting any of those blind spots. And then, family, because I think I'm one who tends to can be my own worst enemy in always working and not being able to switch off and saying, okay, work is done now, family life or vice versa. So I think it's definitely, it's still trying to figure out each day, and each week it looks a little bit different, but hopefully I think I'm getting a bit better with some of those everyday challenges. And then trying to almost have a forecast, so to speak, where they talk about your SWOT analysis, understanding what are the worst case scenarios and how are you going to deal with that. So at any given time, knowing that there will be challenges in a business, but I think that what has helped is also focusing on the wins in the business. So, that hang on, at any given time, there's always going to be the two. And if I choose to focus on one over the other, that will kind of pivot where I'm going, but almost getting that balance to say, okay, yeah, there are challenges, but there are also wins. Let's make sure each one is complementing itself and each one is being addressed.
Yeah. And so do you feel now that with the trajectory that you're on, you're in a space where, because I know there's some of the conversations we've had have been about mentoring and receiving mentoring versus giving mentoring. Are you in that space now where you feel that you can pass on, and are you doing any work in that space?
Yeah, so I was quite fortunate to start a little bit of the mentoring within that clinical space of not in the business in itself. So looking at hiring younger physios who are just kind of getting into the field of in this particular niche. So that's been quite fulfilling. Where just kind of giving back and saying, okay, how in that side of things. And with the business program, that's also kind of creates those opportunities where you're now sharing your story with other people who are just starting or looking into getting into that business. And I think that's always been pretty good, just looking back and saying, okay, how else can I give back? And one of my to-do lists is kind of getting back into the University of Zimbabwe and seeing how we can also look at expanding the specialized area in women's health. So still working on it, still getting those conversations going as well.
So I'll just make a call out to any of the people that I know who are UZ students or UZ lecturers who are watching this. There you go. There's someone who's volunteering to come and help out. So what advice would you give to women who are either thinking about setting up a business or going into a more specialized healthcare field?
I think go for it. If there's a demand, start having those conversations. I think that's kind of where it all started for me, just having those conversations and just go for it. Yeah, definitely go for it. I think one of the things you do realize as you get into any venture, it's like you need to believe in yourself so that you're able to have that fuel and fire to start really giving back in what you're doing. Yeah.
Oh, so thank you for that. And so if I take us back to just more broadly, I know that you and your partner like reading, so this is a question I like throwing out to everyone who's on the program. One or two books that you have found that you would recommend, that you found, either life-altering or influenced you, or that you would really recommend to people?
Yeah, I think the one book that I keep coming back to is that Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. It's still something I still come back to even now, because I first came across that book maybe about 10 years ago, 11, quite a while back. But I think it's one that, it definitely has really good principles that you're able to do, whether that's personal life or business life, that you can kind of really put into practice and get some results with that.
Okay. And so where can people find you on social media? Where are you based? If they're in the northern suburbs and want to pop by, tell us a little bit about the business and where people can find you.
Yeah, so but due to COVID, we're actually available online as well. So we do offer telehealth consultations, video consultations with anyone who's seeking services but is not able to come into the clinic. But otherwise, if there are anyone looking for services, we are based in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. So that's in the Bandura clinic as well as the Merndale location. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
Sorry, and you said social media.
Yeah.
At the moment, just a website as well as a Facebook as well. Yeah.
Okay, and we'll ping them up so people can pick them up from the podcast as well. Okay, so winding it all up, looking at your journey, if you had a piece of advice, something that you would tell the younger you or the young people out there, what would that be?
Be curious. I think just being curious, asking questions is certainly a good start. Understanding that surely with most things, it always starts with a problem, whether you're looking at getting into business or if you're trying to go in a certain direction in life, that it's always kind of addressing a problem. So trying to be a solution to any problem that's out there. So be curious and let's try to address some of the problems that are out there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for that, Tafy. It was really good.
Thank you, Florence.
Well, that's another wrap, another inspiring story for you. Hopefully you enjoyed that one. Don't forget to press like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.